to you. Okay, good, you're there. Welcome. First and foremost, I wanted to say a real thanks. On behalf of the musicians of the Symphonic Band at Ohio State, the entire faculty, staff, students of our School of Music, the director of our School of Music, Richard Blatty, is here, and my friend and colleague, Director of Bands at Ohio State, Russell Nicholson, is here as well. Thank you to the Board of Directors of Midwest Clinic for the opportunity to come and share this way of making music. That's an intentional sentence on my part because, first and foremost, this is a way that the students of Symphonic Band make music without a conductor. We are also spend a great deal of time making music in what I'll call the traditional way, with conductor and exploring repertoire. But this way of making music collaboratively without a conductor has, for the last 14 months, been part of our walk together. So we devise into our rehearsal schedule some time to make music this way each and every week. And I also wanted to share with you that this is truly a sharing. So the vast majority of time this morning is going to be spent with these musicians rehearsing in this way. About 35 minutes or so of the hour will be spent that way. And I'm letting you know that one of the challenges undoubtedly we're going to have in here is when they're speaking to one another, and we've asked them to stand up, it may be a little difficult to hear. So you are welcome to move as close as you would like. They are fine with you filling in the space behind and around. But as the session unfolds, feel free to move about the space as you would like. Rather than rush through the handouts at the end, we're going to take care of that now. You should have 3 things that you got on the way in, and I'd like you to just walk through those 3 resources with you. The first is a tour program, and all of these materials are designed to be self-explanatory, so when you get home or when you share this with colleagues, that this should all still make sense. In this program is some information about the tour that we started on Wednesday from our campus at Ohio State. There's a repertoire list of some of the repertoire that we've been performing on tour, so it gives you a sense for, in addition to the 2 pieces you hear today, the other kinds of repertoire that this ensemble is engaged with. There's also a listing of the musicians here, their years in school, and the degrees they're seeking, which is sometimes interesting to have. And then there's a listing of, in my very biased opinions, the most remarkable colleagues that anybody could ever have in a teaching endeavor here in the back page of the program as well. So that's this document. There is also a handout, the obligatory session handout, entitled, with the title at the top, Inspired by Orpheus. And this is also designed to be pretty self-explanatory. In addition to the information there on the front page about what this way is, what is this to make music without a conductor, there are some bullet points, in essence, the benefits that from our perspective there are to rehearsing and making music this way, some of the resources, and then some of what we'll call our best practices that we've figured out. This is very much a process and a journey for us, so we're learning more with each and every rehearsal about how best to do this. If you'll flip to the 3rd page of that handout, I'd like to point out a couple of really important resources. First and foremost, to composer Andy Boysen, who is here. And Andy, would you stand up for just a second so everybody gets to see you? One of the 2 works that we'll be doing this morning is a relatively new work of his, Song for My Children. That piece is available from and through him, and his email address is there. And he's also just this morning launched a really great website where you can also get information about that too. So that piece is available. Is Mark Rogers here by any chance? Don't know if he was going to be able to make it. All right, the second piece we'll be doing, this wonderful setting, Eagle Squadron March by Kenneth Alford. His edition of this is stunning. It's terrific, and it's also available through Mark, and his email and contact information is there as well. The 3rd resource on the page, this fall we've been capturing on video this rehearsal process. And the website, actually the URL that you see there listed, which is actually my faculty page, has a link to get you to rehearsal video. And on there is kind of this process just completely laid out before you. So you could actually watch parts of our very first rehearsal this academic year, where students are still going, what's your name again? How does it work? All the way through rehearsal that we just had 2 weeks ago. And so that rehearsal footage is there for you to use and to share with whomever you would like. To just get a glimpse of what this looks like, because that's probably the biggest question most people have, which is, what does this look like? There's information about Orpheus Chamber Orchestra, the people who inspired all of this, and you'll get the opportunity to hear from their artistic director here in just a few minutes. And then two other people. David Hedgecoff, where are you? Stand please, David. David Hedgecoff, my colleague in music education. For those of you at university levels, David is doing research on this kind of an endeavor, and so if you're like, whoa, I'd like to talk to you, David is there, and his contact information is on your handout as well. And then Mark Perulikar, where are you, sir? Mark. Great. Mark Perulikar is a high school band director just outside of Columbus, Ohio, and he is doing this with high school students now. So if you're a high school teacher and thinking, but how would I? Mark's got a lot of answers and can share with you what he's found with his students as well. The rest of this packet are some really rich resources for you about the Orpheus Chamber Orchestra, and I encourage you, in my biased opinion, to learn as much as you can about them because they are doing remarkable things. Third handout comes compliments of Andy Boysen, who you've already met, a full score to Song for My Children, the work that we'll be spending about 35 minutes rehearsing, so you have what the students have as we do this. Broad brushstroke here with this session is basically this. What happens when you empower student musicians with full conductor scores and then entirely step out of the way? Not even coach, but just let them navigate the whole of a composition. Wrestle with priorities. What are we going to rehearse? What are we going to go back for? How do we make this better? And what happens when students are set up in a situation like that? I am finding in my 25th year of teaching, nothing I have ever done as a teacher has enabled our students to more deeply connect with music, artistry, and one another than this. And so if that helps, I'm now going to be really good about getting out of the way. And what we'd like to do is this. We're going to start with them playing the Kenneth Alford Eagle Squadron for you. It's a work that we started the academic year with. They performed on a concert mid-October or so. It'll just give you a sense for kind of what this looks like in about a 3.5-minute stretch. And Jonathan Spitz from the Orpheus Chamber Orchestra, co-artistic director, will have some information to talk with you a little bit about, and then 35 minutes of rehearsal on Andy Boysen's piece, about 8 minutes for questions, and I'll plug this now. I hope your questions are not so much for Jonathan and me. You can find me at the Ohio State booth later or send me an email, but I'm hoping that you'll have lots of questions to ask our students because they're the ones really in the midst of all of this. So that all said, let's begin with a sense for what this looks like at the end product. Everything you're about to hear has been totally the work of these fine people who, in my biased opinion, I love a great deal and are just remarkable. So here's Eagle Squadron by Kenneth Alford. the end of the process. I'd like to now introduce to you someone who's become a very good friend, and quite honestly, my teaching life changed dramatically in the fall of 2012 when the Orpheus Chamber Orchestra was kind enough to let me sit in on a rehearsal. And quite honestly, if I would wish any one thing for you this holiday season, is that sometime in your professional career you have the opportunity to watch this fine, world-class orchestra rehearse. They perform brilliantly. Their rehearsal process, though, is life-changing to watch this happen. So would you please welcome co-artistic director of the Orpheus Chamber Orchestra in New York City, Mr. Jonathan Spitz.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I'm so happy to be here. And I have to say, of course, these wonderful students really spoke more eloquently with their music than anything I'm going to say with words. They make such a great case for the possibilities of the kind of work that we do without a conductor. In fact, one of our self-imposed limits at Orpheus is that we don't do works that need more than, say, 40 players. So already maybe you've proven that idea probably a problem on our part that we should reconsider. So far we've stayed away from Tchaikovsky symphonies, but maybe so I really want to talk to you a little bit about where this came from, in a sense, the fact that Scott has been inspired by Orpheus. I want to talk a little bit about our history. I joined, when Orpheus was founded in 1972, I was still in junior high school. I was actually perfectly aware through some family and friends that this group was starting, but I only joined myself as a substitute cellist in 1984. I became a member cellist elected by my colleagues in 1995, a great day for me. And about 7 years ago, I was first elected as one of the co-artistic directors of Orpheus. So, when Orpheus was founded by a group of idealistic young musicians, it was initially a radical experiment to see what would result if the techniques of chamber music were applied to a small conductorless orchestra. In chamber music and at Orpheus, each musician has an explicit right, even an obligation, to contribute to the creative process, and a commensurate share of accountability for the success or the occasional failure of a performance. From its early days, Orpheus was critically praised, not just for the brilliance of our playing, but for the palpable engagement of each player in every musical detail. It was clear that when a structure is in place that can unleash, organize, and bring together the individual talents of the musicians on stage, an orchestra can execute pristine ensemble and create exquisite tonal beauty and moving interpretations, achieved through a powerful system of rotating internal leadership. Orpheus's blossoming career led to an unprecedented 15-year, 70-album recording relationship with the Deutsche Grammophon label. The resulting discography has enabled Orpheus to reach countless lovers of classical music throughout the world. Today, Orpheus tours throughout North America and South America, Europe and Asia, and performs a critically acclaimed series with the world's great soloists at Carnegie Hall. We have an ongoing series of recording projects, and I invite you to look for our recent release of the Beethoven Symphonies No. 5 and 7. These were recorded at Carnegie Hall, and they're really, you've seen live recordings advertised. These are truly live performances. They're one take, no edit, no internal editing, a little bit of coughs taken out by an engineer. And I think they're really a very powerful testament to what we're able to achieve in some very difficult repertoire. I'm representing Orpheus here at the Midwest Clinic because, along with colleagues such as Pat Jones and numerous other professors, conductors, and leaders at universities, colleges, and conservatories around the globe, we have found that training students in the Orpheus process offers powerful learning opportunities for many crucial skills: communication, both verbal and nonverbal, team building, deep listening, group problem solving, and understanding the true nature of leadership. You have noticed that each of the skills I enumerated are as valuable for life in general as in music. While I have had the pleasure of hearing numerous inspiring performances by student ensembles, coach, and Orpheus principals, the musical benefits extend beyond the boundaries of any one performance. After participating in an Orpheus-style project, musicians when they play again with a conductor, their more sharply honed listening skills and sense of teamwork equip them to be that much more valuable to the work of the conductor. I personally experienced this as my own schedule rotates between performing as a cellist with Orpheus and as principal cellist with the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra, where there are 5 principal players who have played with Orpheus over the years. Our conductors, both guest conductors and music directors, note the unusually strong sense of team culture that we have brought to that organization. Orpheus takes great pride in the work of what we call the Orpheus Institute, through which we offer educational collaborations custom tailored to the needs of a specific school. These can include a range of activities. For example, we have helped create, in collaboration with local faculty, full-blown, unconducted orchestra projects. In such a project, we provide programming and other planning assistance, as well as coaching from Orpheus's own musicians. Our track record of successful collaborations includes projects with schools such as Juilliard, Manhattan School of Music, University of Southern California, University of Maryland, Western Michigan University, and the Interlochen Arts Academy. In addition, the orchestra provides curated, open working rehearsal, such as Scott was able to observe, demonstrating our methods of collaborative leadership, not just in music schools, but to departments ranging from the psychology of the workplace to business and even medical schools. If you think offerings such as these might be valuable to your institution, I encourage you to please reach out to us. It's been my pleasure to speak to you about Orpheus. I want to hand the floor back to Scott and to the Ohio State University Symphonic Band. Thank you very much.
They are such an inspiration, really. Do yourselves a favor and get to New York and watch them rehearse. Okay, so now let's get to work. Andrew Boysen Jr., you've got a score to this composition with you, hopefully. You're welcome to follow along with us, and the musicians are now in charge.
This plan starts to run through it, 10:45, so a slightly shorter rehearsal without us looking at questions. Sound good? Okay. Have a good rehearsal.
If you're following along in the score, we will be starting at measure 51.
part of 51, the trombones, more or less good.
I feel like our dynamics are not hitting where it's supposed to be. Like at 84, it's supposed to be 4-2 low, and we hit it and die off. Even before they're low. I feel as though we need to just keep that dynamic the whole time. I feel like maybe when we're recording notes, it dies down a lot. We just keep pushing it the whole time. Okay. Yeah.
Thinking specifically off that, we get to the downbeat of 84, and then it kind of sounds a little mushy. So I think we got just a little more. You're not having a hard time hearing really good.
Well, can we go ahead and try that? Maybe start at measure 82, going into 84, and try and make sure those sustains are good. Or?
76 to get into it.
All right, 76.
Where would you like to stop?
Where are we going to stop?
Do we want to address the issue that Emily brought up first, or do you want to focus on the dynamics right now?
We can do that.
Okay.
All right. Measure 76 to 91. Okay, so how does that sound in terms of the sustain notes? Is that a lot better?
It was better. I feel like maybe a little bit more, just keeping that, pushing a little bit more. I feel like it still dies a little bit.
Is it worth going back to it again, or do we want to move on?
Yeah, there's the 200 crescendo right before 84, and I feel like we're getting to the last half note, the last couple notes of that crescendo, and then it just kind of dies off some more rest before we needs to push through instead.
I want to add to that. I feel like at 86 is where it dies. We have a great power from 84 and 85, and 86 is just it was a lot better that time. Yeah.
Is this a dynamic issue or an energy, pushing energy through the bar line? Both. Okay. We have 15 minutes left of rehearsal.
Let's add to the careful attention to the accents that are happening at 84 as well. So at woodwinds, if you can think pushing through each of those lines and keeping that forward momentum, and then brass and anybody also the saxophones that have the accents, if we can think of a quick decrescendo, but a good front to the note, and then keeping it sustained at a slightly less level.
Could you perhaps model that for us? The sustained note?
How about all the brass at 84 and the saxophone?
Sure, 84?
Yeah.
same energy in the note, but having a little bit of a decay after this issue happens. I think that'll help. And then if woodwinds, if we can just drive through each one of your individual phrases, both of those we know. Can we try that at 84? Everybody?
Zach, you said that was the half note was 44. You said that was if we were taking it right? Yeah. Can we all agree not to take it right there? And that would be a little bit there. Just, I think if we do that.
Where do we want to start? For time's sake, can we start at 82? 82 to where? Sorry.
the crescendo is to a good point, but I really think it should come in softer in 91.
Kind of going off that, I was wondering if we could possibly unify the color that we're going for at 91. I almost feel like some of us are sort of playing a little orangey, a little too light in our set. So if we could, I don't know, I would prefer more of a yellow. I don't know. What do you guys say? Stop? What do you guys say? We try a little more of a yellow sound, less vibrato. Yeah, and that might almost be quieter and less loud.
I also think that we're starting to retard a little really at like starting to retard a little at 93. Really we can concept or concept on.
How did that feel? Our day crescendo, day entrance? Okay.
As long as you don't hear me die.
Okay.
How are we on time? Because I just want to be sure we ask Dr. Boysen that question.
We have 7 minutes of the rehearsal.
Okay.
So, shall we
Run
run?
91 again.
Yeah. Yes.
If we don't start 91 at the correct dynamics, someone disagrees to stop us. So we restart.
Sorry, I'm going to go down. Oh, sorry.
I just want to say I love that flute sound. I think that sounded significantly better than it had.
I still think 91 is a little faster in the vibe. Make it more dramatic to start, and then we have 5 minutes of the rehearsal.
Should we jump back to 59 and what we were talking about earlier with those two trombones and the hearing ones? I think something that they call that two trombones, if you could put just the slightest bit of separation in those two notes so we can really clearly hear them.
Now, can you repeat that? I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I was suggesting the trombones maybe put a slight bit of separation, nothing drastic, but just a clear articulation of both of those notes, maybe a little bit more than they're doing now, so we can really hear them.
At 59, can we put a little bit more doing it, take a little bit more risk? I feel like
Christian, can you service at 59? Yeah, sure. Where are we stopping?
88? Yes.
Yeah.
We are starting at 59.
Maybe those a little better moving together.
what you see on page, what you think.
I feel like it's sort of a moment, it's only a moment, it's kind of a moment where you're getting lost in the motion a little bit, and then the multiple is on the right after that just kind of brings it back in again. So I would like to actually see it go more than we've done before.
All right.
attendees. Andy Boysen. We promised you time for questions. We've got 10 minutes. Go at them all. Oh, go. Just shout them out.
We saw a lot of the same people talking. We heard comments from the same people over and over. Are those roles defined, or did they just come about naturally by people who are more comfortable sharing or confident in their ideas?
Yeah, so I guess what I would say is that it's not. I think everyone in this room is on ensemble has at one point or another voice of concern or idea or thought, but I think what you said is true. Some of us are more predisposed to that than others, and I venture to guess it might be for some responsibility or more on future entities. So they're all bright people, they all comply.
I would also say that, there's always such different opinions that if someone has an opinion and they don't say it, there's always going to be someone else that's going to say it. There's always going to be somebody that's going to say something that expresses small ideas, and that will get out there something. It's not agreed upon. It's not agreed upon.
At the beginning of the process, like when you started, were you in a circle formation? Did you something engage, or do you work with this all the time?
It's something we had discussed earlier, but in the interest of setup and interest of efficiency, we started with the traditional band setup with right from the back, but then as we realized it was kind of a time essential, it was easier to connect with the group. We moved it to the side. That's kind of the college did although the circle is awesome.
And in terms of the other pieces that we've done over the past, I guess, 2 years, we always sit like this. So we've never done a circle. But it's a good idea.
Can you describe for us where you've had conflict, either in interpretation or?
How do you find it translates to when you have your conductor guy on the podium? Like your own musicians who does it?
I find that I'm much more intensive listening-wise. I think than playing on the full score, it's remarkable how perked up my ears are to people all the way over there. Now I know what's going on across the ensemble, and I feel like I'm just a better musician for it.
Yeah, actually, at the first school on the tour, someone very professional in Ohio. We sat with the students there, and they brought up the fact, like, oh, how does this make you better? They said something somewhere that helps us listen, because sometimes the recordings or performances, we're hearing parts for the first time. So it helps them figure out what's going on with everything.
I think it also gives us a newfound sense of responsibility for the entire work, and not only gives us responsibility for our part and as a musician, but as a group and as a collaborative effort, which always helps about it.
So I'm curious specifically, people in this ensemble who always have an answer in class, other classes, but don't often give it. Like, to you specifically, what is this experience like for you? People who don't know what to say, but don't always feel comfortable. And I know I'm asking the wrong group of people.
So I started to be able to develop my opinion and feel more
Going off of that, like, if you're a trumpet, for example, you play less than maybe some other people in the ensemble on this piece, do you feel uncomfortable telling the flutes and clarinets that there's a balance issue, or... and then payback because they until years
Well, I mean, it is a concern because we've had balancing issues where I can't hear the bass sax players playing on the other side of the ensemble, and for that, sometimes we voice our concerns even though we're in a different section. Sometimes we ask people sitting out in the hall. We have some members that like to go out in the hall and listen to balance. So it's not that I don't think anyone really feels uncomfortable offering constructive criticism to other sections.
To go off of that, being a member of this ensemble, when we first started this process, that was one of the biggest challenges to overcome, is that we didn't want to say something that would somehow hurt someone else, and it was a process of getting comfortable with each other to do it because now I think we're all to the point where we're comfortable addressing this.
It's kind of going on with that, with the hurting each other's feelings. You're all obviously very dedicated and wonderful people, so you want to work together to make this work well. But have you ever had like interpersonal conflicts? Yes. And how do you resolve that? Do you have like a mediator?
I think there's definitely been those days where we were all really tired and didn't want to do a collaborative rehearsal just because we had exams one day and we just were dead. But definitely, I feel like talking to one another and taking critiques helps us progress faster. And sometimes, I think at one point we were so tired where we just wanted to get through it as efficiently as possible, so we started bolting ideas, and that actually sometimes helps. So.
Do you explore your rehearsals? Yes. And all those. Some of our rehearsals are recorded, but we will record a run-through, that kind of thing. But the whole ensemble, they will listen to 25-minute rehearsal. Initially, maybe we had 25 minutes, 2 days a week. If it was like right before a concert, that's kind of a lot of work. So we also talk after we do a run-through or whatnot of what we performed during that day, and then we say, hey, what should we work on next time? What do we need to address? And then we make a list, and then those are the points that we use for the next rehearsal.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but if, and this is a little bit of a selfish moment, I believe really deeply that I may be one of the luckiest teachers ever to have students like this, and if you help me thank them.